Is it uncomfortable because it's really not you, it's not aligned with your authentic self and who you want to be? Or is it uncomfortable because it's something you haven't habitually done or you've been conditioned out of doing? This is something that comes up a lot when I'm helping people work through their deepest insecurities, particularly around speaking and presenting themselves, and really just building confidence in general. So I want to dive deeper into how to distinguish, is the discomfort coming because it's really not aligned with your personality, or because you feel self-conscious but actually want to get comfortable doing that thing? And that'll make more sense as we go. My name is Trisha Veldman. I am founder of Powerful and Poised, a platform dedicated to helping people master both the art and science of self-expression. I use my decade of individual and group speech coaching experience coupled with my own work as a motivational, inspirational spoken word poet to help teach, inspire, encourage, and hopefully help you feel more confident. So one thing I hear from my clients a lot when we're doing exercises, for example, around impromptu speaking or any sort of exercises really that change their behavior, is they'll say, this is uncomfortable or it feels weird. And I always tell them that's a good thing, because you have to feel uncomfortable to change. If we're doing an exercise and you don't feel anything from it, it's probably not worth our time. Just like if you're doing a physical exercise and you don't feel the burn, you're probably not getting a ton of benefit from it. But you don't want to feel the burn so strongly that you damage your muscle, or you pull a muscle, or you break a bone, or you do some physical harm. So there's always that balance to be had. You don't want to do an exercise that your body is physically not capable of and call it uncomfortable, because you have to be uncomfortable to change. But you also don't want to not challenge yourself enough that you don't grow. So we can use this to help you identify and get comfortable with the way that you actually want to come across. So sometimes people tell us to act a certain way and we think, oh, that's not me, that's just not my personality. And sometimes we use that as an excuse to keep playing small. So I, for example, used to have secret dreams about being a performer and being on stages and things like that, things that I do now. But at the time, it was kind of a secret dream because I was really shy, or I considered myself shy. I didn't have the self-confidence to actually pursue that. So I would tell people, oh no, I hate the spotlight, like that's not me, and really shove down this part of myself out of insecurity and out of fear. But somewhere deep down inside, I knew that that wasn't true. But it's really easy to use the excuse of like, that's not me, that's just not my personality. But sometimes that's true. Like if someone is like, oh, go give a speech, and you're like, no, I really don't want to be the center of attention, that's fair, because there are personalities like that too. But you just want to ask yourself, is that really my personality, or am I saying that because it's comfortable? And this can be really helpful when you're thinking about who you want to be and how you want to come across, and distinguishing that from how the world wants you to be or the world wants you to come across. So I encourage you to think about things that you may consciously or unconsciously say about yourself, how you identify yourself, that you maybe know deep down aren't true. Or maybe you feel like, yeah, that's just how I am, but it's not how you want to be. Because maybe, yes, you feel insecure, you feel socially anxious, you feel shy right now, but that's not ultimately who you want to be or how you want to show up, as was in my case. Yes, it's true that at the time I felt really insecure and I was very introverted and very shy, but I knew that's not how I wanted to be forever. And it ended up not being how I was forever. Yes, I'm still introverted, but I don't consider myself shy. I feel much more comfortable and confident being around people because I've done a lot of work to achieve that. Because at some level, I knew that that wasn't aligned with who I'm meant to become. So start thinking about words and ways that you describe yourself and how you consider yourself and classify yourself. Then get really curious and ask, is this really who I am? And really who I want to be forever. Maybe it's who you are right now. Maybe it's who you were in the past. We can change. You don't have to have the same personality your entire life. In fact, I think that'd be kind of boring if we were exactly the same our whole lives. So, getting curious to say, who is it that I want to be in this moment, and who do I want to be in the future? And we can kind of bridge that gap when we identify the differences there. But you have to get clear on who you want to be, not who society tells you you should be. So what I encourage you to do, this is an active practice kind of video, is make a list of the qualities you would like people to use to describe you, or that you would like to use to describe yourself, or how you want to feel in certain situations, and write those down. So for example, if you want to be the type of person who can make conversation with strangers in the elevator, write something like that down. You can give specific examples. If you want to be the kind of person who can walk into any room and everyone turns heads, write that down. If that's not you, if you think, I'm fine just being comfortable on the elevator and not saying anything, I'm fine. I would actually like to be the person who says less, but when I speak, it's really quality information. And most of my examples are related to speaking and confidence because that's the work I do, but this can be with anything in life. If you want to be the person who can show up to a party and own the dance floor, write that down. And that has the confidence to dance by themselves, write that down too. So you're going to make this list of ways that you would like to come across, and write down a list of how you currently feel doing those things. Do you feel comfortable chatting with strangers on the elevator? Or is that something that you're like, I wish I could do that? Do you feel comfortable going out on the dance floor by yourself? Or is that something that you're like, I wish I could do that? And just for observation, just write these down. So on one side, you're writing where you are now, and on the other side, you're writing where you want to be, and just think about what the difference is there. How uncomfortable would you be currently engaging in the target behavior? So that how you want to be in the future, how uncomfortable would you be going out on a dance floor and dancing by yourself right now, if that's one of your goals? That's probably not for everybody, but just think about that. Or how uncomfortable would you be striking up conversation with a stranger on the elevator? Again, if that's one of your goals. And if you're like, you know what, I am not resonating with any of this, I prefer to be the person who's quieter, that's fine. How comfortable are you right now with silence? How comfortable are you sitting in silence while other people are waiting for you? And is that really who you want to be, or that's what you're telling yourself because it feels comfortable? Now, when you're thinking about your target behaviors, whatever those are, there likely will be a little bit of a stretch, and there should be, because that's how we grow. And you think, how do I actually want to come across, or how do I want to feel in this situation that's not aligning with how I'm currently coming across? So once you have your targets, think about what behaviors someone who engages in those activities would employ. So for example, if you say, I want to be the person who turns heads every time I walk into the room, what does that person do? They probably have a presence about them. They probably stand a certain way. They probably have certain facial expressions. They probably speak a certain way. And this is where you get to decide those qualities, because this is your target, not anyone else's for you. And that distinction is really important. I remember when I was starting my work as a speech coach and working with this company, and my boss was like, I want you to be the person who can go into a corporate setting and really impress all these corporate professionals with how professional and well-spoken you are. And at the time I was like, that doesn't it's not what I want. Like, the corporate world just really didn't appeal to me. My relationship to that has changed because I now recognize everyone in the corporate world as people too. And when I relate to them as humans, it's totally different than how I was imagining it at the time. But at the time, I was like, that is really not my goal. And for a while, I was still working really hard to fit that goal because of my job. And I was like, well, if I want this job, I have to be able to do that. And it was uncomfortable. But once I hit the target, now I can say, yeah, I can go into a corporate setting and wow them in my own way, not by being some corporate professional. In fact, I like to be quite playful and goofy and warm in those environments, things that at a certain time in my life I didn't think was possible. I thought that the corporate world was antithetical to that. Very much not true. You can go be yourself no matter what the setting is. Of course, there are certain standards and protocols and all of that, but you get to decide. So that's why I say it's very important that you're making this list based on what you want for yourself. And you can use other people as examples, as inspiration. But ultimately, you're not trying to become someone else. You're trying to become the version of you that you know you're meant to be. So going back to the first question that I started the video with is, does this feel uncomfortable because it's truly not your personality, or does it feel uncomfortable because it's not something you've been used to be doing? So for me, for example, speaking on a stage, yeah, I felt super uncomfortable because I wasn't used to it at first. Now I feel a lot more comfortable. But at first I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I was like, had a phase where I was like, I don't want to be in front of crowds ever. The fear of public speaking is just too intense. I'm willing to give up on that dream or that vision for myself for the sake of my comfort, because it's uncomfortable to be in front of an audience. And at a certain point, I had to recognize the discomfort of not reaching that dream was greater than the temporary discomfort of being anxious when I would publicly speak. And sometimes I still think like, oh my gosh, why do I do this to myself? Like, I get nervous every time. But it's not so intense and it's a lot more manageable now, and I actually don't get nervous every time. But it took a few years to get there. Then I recently shared a video where I was talking about home videos, and as a child, I love being in front of the camera. I wanted the attention, and so it was in me, and I had to get over the discomfort of having this dream and this desire for something but not knowing how to do it, which feels uncomfortable, and engaging in those behaviors that felt very vulnerable, that felt very unlike me. But I had to stop at some point using the excuse that that's just not me, or that's not my personality, because it was me. It was me from the time I was a child. It's just that as I became a teenager, I had all this conditioning that was like, oh, be quiet. Oh, that's not you. Oh, you're good at school. You're soft-spoken. Everyone called me soft-spoken. So I was like, okay, I'm just shy and awkward and soft-spoken and socially anxious. And I kind of forgot who I had been as a child. And I think that happens for most people. We have certain desires and goals for ourselves, but then we have all this conditioning that makes us think we're actually not that way. And as we grow and mature and get to know ourselves, we realize who we really are and who we're really meant to be. So my encouragement for you is to make this list, get clear on who it is you want to be, what behaviors that version of you would employ, how that person would feel in different settings, and start challenging yourself to get comfortable with the discomfort of doing those things. So, for example, if you want to be the person that chats with someone on the elevator, the next time you're around a stranger, chat with them, even though it feels uncomfortable. And do this until it gets comfortable. And then if you decide, that's really not me, then you don't have to do it. But at least you know that that's coming from your decision of that's really not my personality, not the fear of what would happen if I did that, or the insecurity of, I'd rather not talk to them, so I'm just not. But it's really empowering when you get to the place where you know that it's your choice, and coming from a place of, yeah, I could do that, but I don't want to, versus telling yourself you don't want to when really you're just scared to do it, or it feels uncomfortable to a degree you can't handle. So all of this is to say, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, and then you can decide what really aligns with who you are. So watch out for places where you're saying, that's just not me. And I encourage you to get curious, is that really not you? Or is that you protecting yourself? I'd love to read some comments about ways that you tell yourself you just are when in fact you know you could be more. And if you have any questions or you want specific exercises to like, okay, well, how do I actually get comfortable speaking with someone on the elevator? How do I actually get comfortable dancing on the dance floor by myself, or whatever it is that your goals are? Leave me a comment or send me an email, hello@powerfulandpoised.com, and I'm happy to give you some assistance. I also want to announce that I have an upcoming virtual group class. So that will be open to the public. And if you're interested in that or future workshops that are around trusting your voice and speaking confidence in general, be sure to subscribe to my newsletter at powerfulandpoised.com. But the first virtual workshop will be held on August 31st. Information for that can be found at emeraldcoaststorytellers.com. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun experimenting with getting uncomfortable.